Satchmo.
All right. It's actually warm out. Let's go.
Oh, look at you guys.
You know, some people don't like us talking over the intro. It's my favorite part. Come on, Jamie. All right, buddy. We got to talk. I got a good friend coming in. His name is Hector. I'm going to need you to just hang out over here. Hector, you ready?
Ready.
Let's do it, man. Oh, all right. Oh, man, I love it. My name's Eric Murphy, and this is...
Hector Garcia.
Dude, thank you so much for coming. It's January 7th, 2019, January 27th, 2019, Season 3, Episode 4, and I am excited to be back, man. And I'm really glad that you're here. But, I mean, before we dive into calls, I kind of want to let people know who you are if they don't already know who you are. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm a clinical psychologist. I specialize in PTSD with combat veterans, and I've written a couple books in the field of evolutionary psychology. One on religion and the other on politics, the two things you're not supposed to talk about, apparently.
Well, so I read your first book, and I think we can actually throw it up on screen. It's called Alpha God. And Alpha God really does. I love that it shows kind of how a lot of our behaviors and our societal behaviors really can be traced directly back to our primate cousins, and it's just amazing. And when you called me and told me that you have a new book coming out, I was so excited. I was really, really stoked to get you out on the air. So, when's your new book coming out?
2 weeks.
2 weeks, and what's it called?
February 5, Sex, Power, and Partisanship.
We got an advanced copy. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm seriously reading this as soon as I can. I'm stoked. So, yeah, okay. Let's see. What other announcements do we have? Oh, yes. So here's the deal, guys. If you're in the Austin area or you're looking at coming through Austin, we've got something really, really cool coming up. Friend of our shows, friend of the ACA, Shelly Siegel, is going to be coming to Austin and is going to do an acoustic concert. And it is going to be, before that, we're going to have our first actual live out on a stage show of secular sexuality. And we have an ad. Can we throw that up? Make this Valentine's Day one to remember. It's time to get sexy. Live in Austin, Texas, an intimate performance by recording artist Shelly Siegel follows a live taping of secular sexuality. Food is included and drinks will be available for purchase. Get your tickets now by going to eventbrite.com and search for secular sexuality. That's eventbrite.com, search secular sexuality. Oh my gosh.
It's good. Sounds good.
Right? I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. The voice kind of sounds a little assholey, but I mean, otherwise it's pretty good. If you're gonna,
sounds good.
If you're going to be in the area, please, we are limited with tickets. So if you are looking at coming out, if you are here, do not wait. Last time people waited for the Bat Cruise, and a ton of people couldn't come. There are regulars here. So don't wait. Don't be that person. Come on down, see it. Tickets are affordable. They're $30, and it is totally freaking worth it. And by the way, they're going to serve. We're going to have food and... wine and beer will be available for purchase.
Food, wine, and beer.
And it's on Valentine's Day. Right. So I'm stoked. Let's see, January issue of our magazine, Thinking Aloud, is out for, it's the 27th. That should be out. There it is. If you haven't checked it out, please do. And it is now available in English and German. And looking at getting translated into other languages, we're really excited. We're really grateful for our volunteers who are doing that. Two more things before we go into calls. Godless Engineer is going to be on our Discord coming up very, very soon, and I'll pull up that date shortly. Really excited about that. And Genetically Modified Skeptic, who has been on Talk Heathen before, friend of the show, he actually recently did an episode, Is the Atheist Community a Cult? And it really... I mean, he did a lot about the ACA. If you want to see some video about what it looks like on the other side of this camera, and kind of what we're about as far as the community is concerned, definitely check it out because it is absolutely worth it.
I saw that. It was a great episode.
Yeah.
What I really like is how he operationalized what is a cult. Let's use that standard. Let's define it.
Absolutely.
Very thoughtfully delivered, I thought.
So I am going to do my best. If I'm a little less movement, it's because I just the other day got into a pretty big car accident.
Yeah.
I'm okay. My car is totaled. But the outpouring of support and messages that I've gotten when I posted that I got in an accident it's really humbling. And I cannot thank you all enough. It was amazing. And I honestly don't know how to handle it. But thank you. Okay. Are we ready to take our first caller?
Take it.
All right. So the first person who called in is Masha Malak. Masha, you're live with Eric and Hector. How you doing?
Hey, good afternoon. How everyone is doing? My name is Masha Malak. I'm a Hebrew Israelite from Brooklyn, New York.
Cool. All right. What do you want to talk to us about today?
Well, first of all, I want to say all religions are false.
I agree.
Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. Religion goes back to a Latin word which means religio, which means to tie back into control. Religion is used to control people and to subdue them. But the Holy Bible, the Holy Scriptures, the God of Israel is real.
How do you know that?
Right? The
And
Bible,
also,
Masha,
Masha, this is a conversation. This is not a monologue, right? We're going to talk back and forth. Masha, you've said that everything is made up except for the Bible. What I'm wondering is, how did you come to that conclusion, and how do you know that the Bible is true?
That's what I'm about to explain to you before you cut me off.
Well, I will continue to cut you off if you're going to monologue. This is a conversation, like I said.
It's not a monologue. I know it's a conversation.
Okay, go ahead.
When I finish speaking, then you're going to speak.
This is my show, and I'm in pain. You're going to deal with it, or you're going to get dropped.
The Holy Scriptures, right, deal with one nation of people. The Holy Bible is a historical book full of laws, statutes, and commandments and prophecies. So how do we know the Bible is real? Let's go to Deuteronomy. First, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
If you can answer it for me, please. What's the two biggest religions for so-called blacks and Hispanics? The two major religions for so-called blacks and Hispanics.
What does it matter?
Just answer the question.
So I'm Latino and predominantly Catholic. And
Catholic? Well, what's the bigger umbrella for Catholic?
Christianity.
Yes, Christianity. And what's the symbol in Christianity?
The tool of Jesus' crucifixion, a cross.
Yes, the the cross. What is the cross made out of?
This is getting real weird.
But why don't you get to the point rather than
Yeah.
ask the questions leading us there? Why don't you just say?
Yeah. No, I'm gonna get to the point, but I want to make you say it. You said the cross is made out of what?
Wood.
Wood. Just have the dialogue with me. All right. And what's the other major religion for so-called blacks and
Dude, just get to the point. I've got 6 other callers.
All right. I don't want to answer it. Another biggest religion is Islam.
Yeah.
And we know that the symbolism in Islam is the stone, the Kaaba stone, they walk around 7 times. So according to Deuteronomy 28 and 64.
Why are you referencing a book without justifying its legitimacy first? Tell me why I should open the Bible. Tell me why I should open the Bible and tell it's true.
I'm telling you a prophecy that came to pass.
Oh, okay. No.
Israel.
No. I have a book, and I made prophecies, and those came true as well.
All right.
Does that mean that my book is true?
What you said?
Does that mean that my book is true?
What book?
The Book of Eric. I'm holding it.
The Book of Eric is true. I don't know nothing about the Book of Eric.
Oh, let me tell you a little bit about it, man. You see, it says that I am your God.
Can I finish?
No.
Can I finish?
No, because
finish. You don't want to finish because you don't want the truth to come out. Like I said, Deuteronomy 20.
No, you're trying to presuppose that your book is true, and then you're pointing to your book. Only one of us can talk at a time, Masha.
Even unto others.
All right. So that's what happens. You get put on hold, right? You're going to be on hold because only one of us can talk at a time, right? So in this book, it says that 9/11 was going to happen, right? On September 11th, 2001, 2 airplanes will be flown into the World Trade Center in New York. And it happened. Do you believe that that is true?
Listen, are you covering my... Hello?
Were you talking the entire time,
Why
Masha?
did you move? Yes, I was talking the entire time. I don't know why you muted me. You don't want
Because
the truth to come out.
my mother told me that you have a mouth
you
and
a
ears,
prophecy.
and you can only use one at a
That's what
time.
I'm saying. You have, exactly. You're not letting me finish my point. You have 2 ears, so listen up. You call me to come and provide you proof that the Bible is real. I'm telling you a prophecy that came to pass.
And I told you a prophecy, so answer that.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
I'm the one that told you a prophecy first. You didn't let me finish.
No, Masha.
Christianity is wood, Islam is stone, and that happened to the children of Israel. And so-called blacks and Hispanics are lost in these false religions.
So-called blacks and
Hispanics. The Bible don't
Hispanics.
deal with religion.
Masha.
And the Bible don't deal with religion.
You are talking to somebody that is not me. That's the thing, man. You need to talk to me. Right now you are talking at me, and there's no conversation happening.
I am talking to you.
No, I put you on hold, and you wouldn't shut up for so long. You didn't even know I put you on hold.
Because you're trying to push your false narrative instead of hearing the truth of the Most High God.
So you're going to listen, or this conversation is over?
All right.
Okay.
You
In this book, Masha, shut up and listen.
First of all, who are you talking to? Don't tell me to shut up. I know your mother didn't raise you like that.
Yeah, well, my mother told me to not have to put up with bullshit from people like you. So you're dropped.
That's probably best.
Yeah, I'm in pain. This is what happens.
Yeah.
So here's the thing: if you're going to point at a book and say that you're using the book to justify itself, right? Then what you can do is actually point at a whole bunch of books like that. I can write down in a book that, September 11th was going to happen the way it happened, but it happened after the fact. So how valid is that? Right?
Yeah.
What you need to do is you need to actually have some outside sources to verify whether or not the claims in the book are true.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to do that, I really don't have a reason to open that book.
Yeah.
So I actually had someone who is an apologist message me, and I really hope that he can do a little better. Otangelo in Brazil. You're live with Eric and Hector.
Yes. Hello.
Hey, buddy. How's it going?
Fine, thanks. And you?
Good. So you added me on Facebook, and I asked you to call in. And I appreciate that you called in. You put a whole lot of messages, and I wasn't really able to see my friends anymore. So I kept you as a friend because I want to have a conversation. But it seemed like there was a whole lot of posturing going on and a whole lot of chest thumping going on, and I'd rather just talk to each other. So
okay.
I'm going to listen to you because I want you to tell me what you want to talk about, and then I'm going to respond to you about what you're talking about. And we're going to have a dialogue, and I'm excited about that. So, okay. Otangelo, what would you like to talk about?
I would like to make a first question to you.
Of course.
What are the 2 possible world views?
That is so open-ended, I don't even know where to begin. People who like chocolate and people who do not like chocolate.
Shall I answer to you?
No, I just did. You got to be a little more specific, Otangelo.
Okay. There are 2 worldviews. One is one with God, with the Creator, and one is a worldview without a Creator.
I would disagree.
Would you agree with that?
No. I actually think that is a wonderful example of a false dichotomy.
Yeah.
Do you understand that I can come up with a whole bunch of other possible scenarios? But I'm assuming, I'm sorry, I'm jumping in. I'm assuming you're talking about the instantiation of the universe. Is that correct?
Well, I am saying that whatever proposal you do, it can be put into either a worldview where there is a creator or the other alternative where there is no creator.
Proposal for what, though? For human existence, for the existence of the universe? Proposal for what? What are we speaking of?
Yes, for the existence of the physical universe, life, and our existence.
Okay, that's a little different because, I mean, you could have countless worldviews about countless number of topics or themes or whatever, but you're talking about the existence of the universe.
I would say about the existence of our existence, of the universe, the earth, planets, suns, life, biodiversity, the created world.
Okay.
So I would say that our existence can be explained in two manners. One is one with a creator, which is endless, without beginning, or you have a second option where there is no creator.
So hold on. You've done a couple things in there, and I don't know if you understand that you have. So I just kind of want to tick them off really quick. Number one, good friend of mine and the show, Matt Dillahunty, one of his favorite things that he pops up is, what about universe farting pixies? Would universe farting pixies be in one or the other? Which one would they fall in?
If it is conscient, intelligent, powerful.
No, I didn't say that. I said universe farting pixies.
Well, it depends what you understand as pixies.
I understand.
Are they conscient and
well, they're tiny and they have wings, and when they fart, they create universes.
Okay, are they conscient and intelligent?
But if I may, what is the point? I mean, okay, so you're saying there are two different ways of looking at the universe. Is there a point to that?
Well, I mean, but first, I'm trying to find out if he recognizes that that's a false dichotomy. So I'm giving him a third example so that he can kind of see.
Yeah.
Because I think that at the beginning of our physical existence, there is a
Otangelo, we'll get there. We'll get there, I promise. But I want you to answer my question because you're saying everything fits into one of two buckets. And so I said, what about universe farting pixies? Which bucket does that go in?
Well, I am asking you, are the pixies intelligent?
No.
Then it would be a worldview where there is no God, intelligent being at the beginning.
But hold on, the existence or non-existence of said universe farting pixies does not say whether or not a God exists. It just says that they're what created the universe. So where do you get that answer? It feels like you're stretching.
You need to define, are your pixies intelligent or are they not?
I'm just going to say no for the sake of argument. But whether they are or not doesn't say whether or not a God exists, right? Because you can also imagine a universe where there are universe farting pixies and a God exists, and a universe where universe farting pixies are there and a God doesn't exist. But you talking about the beginning of the universe does not really necessitate a God. That's my point.
So what does it necessitate?
I don't know. Otangelo, the intellectually honest answer is I don't know.
I don't think it is an honest answer. Absolutely not. You can know two things.
What can you know, Otangelo?
From nothing. Yes, you can know that from nothing comes. Do you agree with that?
Nothing comes from nothing?
No.
You know,
nothing is alive. Nothing is the absence of anything.
You know, I've actually seen some really interesting talks about nothing and about the absence of anything. And I think that's a rather interesting thought experiment, but I really don't think I'm qualified. My math isn't very good. How about you, Hector?
I'm not a physicist per se, but I still keep wanting to get to what is your point? What is your point about there's two ways of looking at the universe?
If nothing has no creative powers, then atheism is false.
What? Okay, so you do realize that when you make a point, you need to back it up.
Absolutely.
And
if absolute nothing has no creative powers.
Hector, no, you're Otangelo. I'm getting weird here.
No.
Otangelo, so help me out here. So it seems like what you're doing is trying to construct a dichotomy and then tearing the other down without providing any evidence for your own point. It is, Yeah, well, I'm glad you agree. Otangelo.
Tell me another option. Tell me a third option. I say there is either God or there is none. Which is the third option?
Otangelo, are you saying that something cannot exist without having been created by some entity? Is that what you're saying?
Excuse me, I didn't understand.
Are you trying to make the argument that things can't exist without some entity having created it? Is that do you believe that?
Well, I will just say this. From absolutely nothing comes.
Why do you think that there's nothing, though, Otangelo?
I didn't say that.
You're saying from nothing comes nothing. This is weird.
My proposition is
Please.
An eternal God. That is my proposition.
But can you answer that question I asked you earlier, though? Because do you believe that something has to have come from a creator? It has to be created for anything to exist, matter, the universe, humanity, diversity of life, as you said earlier. Does something have to have been created by an entity? Or do you believe something different than that? Is that what you believe?
Well, I believe that if the universe had a beginning, then you have just three options to explain the existence of the universe. One is an eternal creator of some sort. The second option is that absolutely nothing created the universe. And the third option would be that there would be an eternal universe which has never been created.
Or
in my view,
universe farting pixies. And you got to remember, Otangelo, what you're doing is adding. See, this is another thing I put a pin in. But actually, you know what? Let's put a pin in this because you completely sidestepped Hector's question, and that's not fair to him. He asked you a question; he deserves an answer.
Okay, could you ask again, please?
I have many questions. I asked that question a couple times, and okay.
I answered it.
Let me ask you this, Otangelo. Would it make you feel uncomfortable? Would it make you feel unsettled if the universe came from nothing? What does that proposition do to you emotionally?
It's illogical.
But that's not what I asked. Does it make you feel scared?
It's not a question about feeling. It's a question about reason, if it's logical or not, and it's simply irrational. It's
okay, then let's follow logic through. So do you think that matter has to anything in the universe has to have a creator to exist, or can it come up from nothing? Does it have to have some kind of entity creating it?
Well, science says, and is in a consensus, that the universe had a beginning. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think it's hard for you to answer that question. It's a pretty simple question.
No, I'm just going with science, and science says that the universe had a beginning. If it had a beginning, then it must have had a cause. Very logical.
No, not logical, Otangelo, and I'll tell you why. So from my understanding of it is that observations of a red shift indicate that things are moving apart from each other in the universe. And so if we were to rewind that, we would get to a possible singularity. And we have labeled the expanse of that singularity the Big Bang, kind of a misnomer, but that's all we have. And so the right thing to do is say, I don't know for the rest, because then you give yourself permission to learn, right? What you're doing is saying, I think that is a beginning point, therefore God. There's a chance it wasn't a beginning point, or there's a chance that doesn't even make sense given the context of the way time and space interact. But you have to understand, man, that you actually need to back up the idea of an eternal being, right? Are there any other eternal beings that you can point me to so I can compare?
Well, you said that the singularity could be eternal. No, It could not be eternal.
I
And
didn't
there
say
are
that.
good-
And my question was, do you have an example of any other eternal beings that are existent that I can compare against the one you're talking about?
Well, I don't have to make a definition about what kind of eternal being that it is.
Oh, you
My
don't have to
point
make
is
a
that
definition.
there
You
is-
can just assert a point and say you're right.
At this point,
Is that right?
no. At this point, no. We can develop the idea, but at this point, my only proposition is that if the universe had a beginning, and science says it had a beginning, then there must have been a cause. And that cause could not have had a beginning too, because then it would be eternal regress.
Yeah,
So
which
there
is
must
why.
have been a cause.
No, actually,
which
no.
had no.
No, because that's special pleading. Do you understand special pleading?
Well, listen, the same proposition that...
Hold on. No. I asked you, do you understand what special pleading is, Otangelo?
I know it, but it does not...
Okay, good. Then answer. I'd like to know that we're not just talking past each other. So there's something called affirmation, and I want to affirm to you that you understand what I'm saying. And I want to affirm to you that I understand what you're saying, which is why I try and reflect back, I mirror back a bit of what you said so that I make sure that I've got the right idea of what's going on, right? I'd like to do a little bit of the same. That way we know that we're having a conversation.
Okay.
Okay, so...
Go ahead.
Thank you. So where I was going with this was I asked, do you understand what special pleading is? And the reason for the audience is special pleading is when you make a special exception in one case, right? And so if you find yourself in an infinite regress, in this example, if you were to say, what created the universe? Well, God. Well, what created God? It can't because I made a special rule. Otherwise, you're just going to get a whole line. It's turtles the whole way down. So you've got to take into account special pleading. And so it seems like you are saying that your God gets a special privilege. Is that right? I don't want to mischaracterize what you're saying.
I do not agree with you, because it's not special pleading to say God is eternal, since it's exactly what the atheist has traditionally said about the universe. It is eternal and uncaused. The problem is that we have good evidence that the universe is not eternal but had a beginning. And so the atheist is backed into the corner of saying the universe sprang into being cause, which is absurd.
No, actually, it's absurd. And I saw this on your Facebook, which really kind of fried my noodle a little bit, is that you said the atheist. You're talking to the atheist. If you want to create a straw man or talk about an atheist that isn't in the room, either you can do that with your friends and get nowhere, or you can listen to the person you're talking to and have a conversation. But I did not say that. I did not make that assertion. And I wouldn't make that assertion even if I was given the opportunity, because I don't believe that. So, Otangelo, are you talking to me, or are you talking to the atheist that you have in your head?
Well, I just answered your point. It is not special pleading to say that God is eternal, because that is exactly the same thing that atheists have said about the universe up to about 100 years ago.
So,
and nobody said back then that is special pleading to say that the universe is eternal. So why does it apply to God and not to the universe?
So here's the thing. I don't know a lot about the beginnings of the universe. We're still investigating it.
Yeah.
But what I can do is I can look at different types of reasoning and logic to find out whether or not I'm even going to get to a good place, right? There are some forms of logic that people use that don't actually get you to truth. And what you used is one of them. Now, that doesn't mean that you're wrong, but it means that it is not reliable, right? Your epistemology, what you just expressed to me, is tu quoque, right? You too. It is the argument from hypocrisy. I'm not making a statement about the beginnings, the instantiation, or whatever of the universe. I'm talking about what your point is. And so far, all you've given me is, well, you do it too, therefore you're right and I have to be, you're wrong and I have to be right by default. I need you to actually back up what you're saying, because if all you're going to do is point fingers, we're just going to get nowhere, man.
The other thing that I was just thinking about is what science does is it updates its definitions based on incoming information. So if that was a view of physicists that the universe was eternal, well, and that has changed, it's because new calculations, new calculuses have been done to stipulate something else, whereas religion stays unchanged from Bronze Age reasoning about the world. I think that might be a good thing.
Yeah, I mean...
It's actually so that science has shifted to what the Bible is saying since millennia. While science 100 years ago claimed that the universe was eternal, the Bible in Genesis said that the universe was created by God.
Well,
I don't think science says that the universe was created by a male entity, by a man.
Let me finish, please. I did let you speak. Now let me finish, please.
Go ahead.
So science came to the conclusion that the universe had a beginning. The singularity was not eternal. You can check, but Vilenkin and other cosmologists, they confirm that the universe had effectively a beginning. An eternal universe is not possible.
Okay.
So that brings you to the question, well, can nothing create something? No, it cannot.
Otangelo?
So if the universe had a beginning, it had a
Otangelo,
cause.
I'm going to need to start making notes, because you said so many things at once that I want to address that I'm afraid that I'm going to miss a couple. And I really do want to hit, as many of these as I can. So you did it again. It's called Tukokwe, right? Instead of making a point on your own, you said science is wrong, here's history, and you're talking at me. Why don't you care what I want to talk about? How come you're not saying, hey, Eric, what do you think about this? And then I can actually defend it, because you're putting me in a position where I would defend people that I don't know, and that's wrong.
We call that kitchen sinking in a couples therapy.
Yeah?
Yeah, just like throwing everything out at once so you can't really respond to something.
Otangelo, we need to have better therapy. I need to make this relationship work. I want to. You're worth it. So instead of...
I do like the reflective listening kind of thing. Just let me know that you hear me.
Yeah. So let's start again. Because
listening.
Fantastic. Let's start again. What you did again is say, science does this historically, or science is wrong, therefore I'm right. Why do you think that is a good way to come to truth? And why do you think that makes your claim more likely?
It's a good question which you made now. How can we come to truth? And I would say we have three methods to find out about truth. These methods are science, philosophy, and theology.
Oh,
boy. I hope you've read more than 3 topics. No, my gosh.
Those are broad. I mean, it totally depends. That is really, really broad. But let's kind of zoom in, because I think you're trying to make a point, and I don't want to get lost off in the weeds. So from what I'm getting, you're saying that you believe that there are 3 ways to understand the world: science, theology, and philosophy. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Are they mutually exclusive, or can they work together?
I think they work together.
Okay, so that means that point is actually not, it goes out the window, right? So what we should look at is, what tools do we have to understand that a thing is true? And I think that is a wonderful thing that we can explore together, Otangelo, right? So let's look at a few things. I heard you mention that you referenced something in the Bible, right? At the very beginning, God created the universe. And so I guess my question to you is, it seems like you're using the Bible as a reference point because you're taking that as true. So how can I come to understand that the Bible is true and other books are false?
How can you understand anything if you don't make the presupposition that a creator made you, your intelligence, your logic, your reasoning.
I'd be happy to talk about that.
An orderly world.
Otangelo, I'd be happy to talk about that. But let's get back and finish this piece first. I'd love to be able to talk about that with you. It's something that I've studied up on, and I'd love to be able to go into it. But I want to kind of close this last door, right? In this last door, I asked you, how can I come to understand that the Bible is true and other books are false?
Okay. I can give you many different reasons, but
sure.
I would say that
give me your best. Give me your best.
Would be I would say that before we come to talk about the Bible and the specific deity, that we should make first another clarification, and that would start with this question, which I asked you at the beginning. What explains our existence better, a deity or none? Once we have cleared up this question, then we can move forward with the next question, sure. Which religion would fit best to that deity?
Sure.
So I ask you again.
No, I'll answer.
Why are we here?
Well, why are we here is different from the question that you asked. You asked, how can I make a logical decision? And what was the rest of that? I missed some of it. Now I feel bad.
My mind just has gone numb.
No, that's okay.
A little bit.
Otangelo, I want to answer your question.
Sorry,
I feel like
I
feel like you've made a couple things, and I kind of tried to reach for a bunch of them, and now I'm missing.
I think it was. Yeah. No. Go ahead.
Otangelo, could you repeat yourself?
Well, I can conclude my reasoning, and then you can answer. If we presuppose that no deity made us, and that we are the product of an evolutionary process, then, as even Darwin said, how can you trust reasoning?
You need to ask me what I think of evolution before you can start sticking me with things. And again, that's off base. It feels really scattershot because that had nothing to do. I asked you to answer. I asked you to re-ask the question you asked before. You're giving me a totally different question.
Okay. Could you repeat your question, please?
Sure. My question was, Otangelo, I missed what you said a moment ago, and I want to answer it. Could you please repeat yourself? That was the question that I asked, and you started to go in a different direction.
Okay.
And I want to answer your question.
Okay, so I will repeat. I will repeat to you. How can we make sense of the world if we do not presuppose an intelligent creator, which is by himself rational and intelligent,
sure,
and which made an orderly world with laws that are orderly, that we can explore, and that made also human beings that have the same capability as this entity has. That means to be able to reason logically.
That's a big list. That's a big list.
And
boy.
That's a lot to break down. I'm going to do my best, okay, Otangelo? And you asked this question because I asked you, how do you know the Bible is true? And you said, we need to get this out of the way first. I appreciate that you repeated yourself. So let me break this down a little bit. Number one, the snarky thing that I can do is say, well, I am God and I created it. And the reason why I would be snarky that way is because there's just as much proof and justification that I am God that then you can justify your deity. And I could go down that path,
absolutely not.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But we'll get there because we're going to talk about the Bible afterward, right?
You had a date you were born, and you know when you were born, and you know your mother and your father, so you had a beginning.
Oh no, it says so in my book, Otangelo. It says so in my book. I'm eternal, but we'll get there. We'll get there. I'm still breaking down what you said. Right? You said there has to be a God that has all of these qualities, right? There has to be a God that can create a world that you can explore. Is it possible, can you imagine a scenario where there was a God that created a world not so you can explore it, but that's just a byproduct. I mean,
Why not?
yeah, absolutely, I agree. But Otangelo, the reason I'm bringing this up. Hold on. I don't want to lose this thread, please. I don't want to lose this thread, and I want to walk with you through it, right? So you said that these are necessary qualities, and so I pointed out one of those necessary qualities, and you said, yeah, why not? It's not necessary. So I can break down the qualities that you gave, and we can actually find that none of them are necessary. So would you like to state again what the necessary qualities are that you're talking about? Because you started the question by saying, how can you know anything if this God, and then you listed a ton of different things, how can you know anything if this God does not exist? So I guess let's start by identifying what your God is, because I mean, we can't really get anywhere productive otherwise.
Okay, can I answer?
Absolutely, thank you.
If this God created the universe, which is matter, space, and energy, then that means that beyond the Big Bang, these elements did not exist. So this entity must be spaceless, matterless, and timeless.
So can you demonstrate to me that something can exist before the beginning of existence? Right. So I'm actually going to take you at part of that. I'm going to accept it because I want to entertain this thought.
I didn't say before because there was no time.
Right. So
I would say beyond the Big Bang.
Okay.
Well, first of all, we are talking here about
what about beyond?
philosophy.
I guess I don't know. Well, you're making truth claims about the universe. It's more than just sitting in a back room drinking scotch. We're actually talking about what you think about the universe we live in. So you said beyond the universe. What does that mean? Is there any way that we can tell that there's anything beyond? I'm having trouble with that word. It's very nebulous.
I use beyond because if I would say before, that would imply time.
Okay.
But before the Big Bang, there was no time. So there had to be a reality which was a void of the physical reality in which we live in.
How do you know that?
That means that it's philosophy. That is not about science. It's about philosophy.
And I appreciate you letting me jump in and ask because I want to follow, but if I disagree with something, I want to be able to jump in before we get way off the tracks. So I appreciate your patience there. Thank you, Otangelo. How do you know?
Okay.
How do you know that there's a necessity of something outside of time and space, and that, how can you even justify the existence of that kind of thing? It doesn't make really any sense to me. How did you come to that conclusion?
Okay, you asked several times about how I know, right?
Absolutely.
But my how can I say? My approach is not about absolute knowledge. Science is not about proving things. The Bayesian method is about what is the probability that X is true rather than Y. We are talking
Bayesian probability is...
I
mean, I like that you're bringing up different things. Bayesian probability, though, has a very specific use. And that's not a good use of it. Because essentially what you're saying is what is more likely, the thing that I think is more likely has to be true. And what my response there is, I don't know. I don't know, man. And for you to say that something is necessary,
but you can know.
How can I know?
But you can't know.
How can I know? What is the tool that you use to get to that knowledge, Otangelo?
Reason, logic,
love it,
and evidence.
I love it. So where's your reason, logic, and evidence?
Okay. Just a moment.
No worries. Take your time.
I would again say that we are talking about a philosophical issue and not about a scientific issue, because we are talking about a reality which is beyond the physical world. So my question to you is, did no eyes made the eye? Did no ears made the ear? Did no mind make the mind?
That's another wonderful question. And I actually...
Let's finish to make these questions, and then please you answer me.
Absolutely.
About 10 questions.
10 questions?
No conscience. No conscience made conscience. No morality made moral.
That's very
Nothing
giving.
produced everything.
Otangelo,
Randomness. Fine-tuning.
I'm flattered that you think I'm going to remember all of this to be able to hold on and wait to talk about each one. I am not that smart. I am not that good. We're going to need to break these down, maybe one or two at a time, but 10 I can't do, I'm not going to be able to do that justice.
Okay, then I will resume my question to one of these points.
Thank you.
Okay. Did non-life produce life?
Okay, did non-life produce life? Well, there's a term we use, and that term is called abiogenesis. And that is the placeholder that we're using until we understand what it is exactly that caused life to begin existing. Actually, it's funny because we don't even have a clear line on where life starts. You have single-celled organisms, but you also have smaller things that it's a weird thing. But
Viruses, a single strand of RNA, some of these.
Yeah. That's a really great point. But to say,
A single strand of RNA life.
But that's a good question.
That's a good question.
I don't know. But I do know that we have a term called abiogenesis. Now, did nothing or how did nothing? I don't know. I think that's the intellectually honest answer. I think that if I had the answer, it would be much...
It's not an honest answer. Do you know why? Because you are a very intelligent person. You run a radio show, and you deal with these questions on a daily basis.
I do. Well, I've got to tell you, Otangelo,
I can tell you...
my heart swells thinking about it, but I don't run this show. Do we have a camera to show the people in the back? Is that up? Hey, everybody in the back. And we have a live studio audience. Can we get a cheer for the people in the back? We've got Mark, Silas, and Vern in the back making this happen. I'm just some asshole, man. I came in and practiced behind the mic, and now people are watching, and I still haven't figured it out, but I'm really, really happy. But let's kind of break down. I appreciate it. Appreciate you, Otangelo. You said we're talking about the instantiation of now life on planet Earth, and it feels to me like what you're saying is you don't have an explanation, therefore the only other explanation is mine.
No.
Okay, then please correct me.
Say that.
No. I said it feels this way, and I'm glad that you're correcting it.
I am not proposing a gap argument. If I say that biogenesis is impossible, then I don't say it based on what I do not know. I say it based on what science knows today. After 60, 70 years of intense scientific investigation, what has been brought to light is that cells are extremely complex factories. It's not an analogy.
Isn't that amazing?
Cells,
it's amazing.
Literally, factories.
Isn't
I
that?
would not say just one factory. I would say it's a complex of interconnected factories which are interdependent. That means that one factory depends from the other. Otherwise, nothing goes.
So, Otangelo, it sounds like what you're saying is you're giving now the argument from irreducible complexity. I'm happy to go through this with you. We still have some time. I have other people on the line, but I'm having a lot of fun here. What I do want to draw your attention to, Otangelo, and I'd love for you to go back and listen to this, is that there are times that we start on a good point and you pick up and you go somewhere completely different.
Yeah.
And not only is that hard to follow, it doesn't get us to being able to have a really in-depth conversation. It feels like you've loaded up a shotgun with birdshot and it's just all over the place. I would love to zero in on any of those because I love talking about them. But for the sake of having a good conversation, I just want you to pick one.
It's been a barrage of questions. I mean, the first question that he came to was like, how do we make sense of a universe that was not created by a creator? How do we make sense of that?
And then it kind of bounced around a bunch, and you've been good kind of recentering.
If you feel that no creator is necessary, then it's up to you to explain how.
Okay, so I don't think you understand how that works, but I'd be happy to explain it to you, right? The neutral position is I don't know. Because you're not being forced to explain something you don't know. You're giving yourself the opportunity to explore. If you say...
So if you don't know, what is your radio show all about? Are you just having a radio show to express your ignorance?
Oh, dude, I'm ignorant about so much. I love it. Dude, do you know that when you actually explore things that you're ignorant about, you don't become ignorant about them anymore? Otangelo, hold on. How wonderful is it to give yourself permission to learn about the world? It's amazing.
Great point.
Listeners, and when does God show up in that situation? How would you recognize design in nature?
Fantastic. I would need to see what nature looks like undesigned and designed so that I can compare. In that example that you just gave, I would need to have something to compare it against.
Does God make mistakes? Can I ask you that, Otangelo? Otangelo, does God make errors?
Yes.
He does make errors?
Listen, I would like to ask another question.
No, you've asked a million questions. Can you answer one question? Does God make errors? If you have a creator, presumably that creator is very, very powerful. Does God make errors?
I know the direction where you want to go, but Eric, listen.
It's a question.
Hector's another host, man. That's not nice.
Not designed would be no universe.
Otangelo.
It's kind of like ask the questions.
Yeah, I mean, I like to ask questions too. We're kind of the dialogue piece of it, right? But what you just did again. Yeah, what you did again is you said.
Did God make a perfect universe, correct?
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I asked, did God make errors? If you have this all-powerful creator that must have made the universe, does that God make errors in his design?
I would say as much. Genesis says that God made a very good creation, which with the fall of Adam and Eve went corrupt.
Okay.
Why do we have a spleen?
The universe in which we live today is not
There's
perfect,
all these errors of design in biology, like our spleen. We don't. Yeah. Why do we have birth defects?
Why are you pointing at the Bible? I mean, you gotta actually give us a reason to open the Bible first. But because it seems like that's the response you gave is that for some reason I don't get it.
Like, are you saying that the fall from grace in the Bible that's what gave us birth defects and organs that we don't use anymore?
I say that the world we live in is corrupted because of the fall described in Genesis.
But that doesn't have anything to do with design. What about design? You're saying that the God designed the universe and designed humanity, but what about those aspects of our design that are faulty, like birth defects, like organs that we don't use anymore? What about that?
Well, let me ask you.
Hold on, answer him first. Answer him first.
How does that happen, though?
Let's suppose that you see a watch, and that watch has a defect. Would you say because of the defect of that watch, the watch was not designed? Or
no. Otangelo, actually, I love this because Hector is granting you. You know, he's saying if we existed in a universe where your God existed, right? He also took what you said before, is that your God is all-knowing and is perfect. And so if that is the case, he's talking about why there's defect, because my response would be snarky. My response would be, Otangelo, if I saw a watch with a defect, I would agree that, you know, in my experience, watches are created. And also, the watchmaker is shitty watchmaker, right? And so if that was the case, then it would suggest, right, that if we granted a divine watchmaker, that your God is a pretty shitty creator. And I really don't think that you would agree with that. So I don't know, man.
Well, let me ask you something. Based on what criteria would you like to judge the creator? Who are you as a created being?
A
beautiful.
rational thinking being, like you said. You use logic and reason. I mean, not only organs like that, but didn't God raise the earth several times because he says, I didn't like what happened to the first one?
Mm-hmm. But I mean, really, Otangelo, I think that is a good ending point. I know we have got other people waiting on the line, but look back, watch this. Toward the end, you were, right around the middle, we were having a good discourse. But if it comes to how dare you, then one of two things is happening. Number one, you're out of good arguments. And or number two, your God is so weak that he needs you to say, how dare you? I don't think that's the case, so I would take that argument out of your toolbox because that's not a good one. Makes your God look pretty bad, actually. You can do better. But in the meantime, have a wonderful day.
What I said, I don't think you are... Okay. Bye.
Take care, brother, and I'm glad that you called in. Keep having conversations. I hope that this kind of helped structure those conversations and maybe being able to have a back and forth, a dialogue instead of putting things on people. Because what I saw on Facebook when you added me was a whole bunch of people who are really good at sticking their heads up their own butts. I mean, you can't really have an argument if you don't have somebody else to talk to. You just kind of make those things up. And don't get me wrong, atheists do it too. Yeah, you guys watching. Yeah, don't do that. So that said, I hope that you become a better logician. I hope that through this discussion and maybe future calls, if you're up for calling, that we can sharpen each other and get to know this world better. But today was not a great one.
That kind of felt like a bad acid trip.
Yeah. I'll tell you. Otangelo, take care, buddy.
Well, if you are interested, just let me know and I can call you and we can focus just on one topic. I'm more than happy to discuss again these topics.
If you ever come out here, I want you to know the first beer is on me. Take care, bud.
Okay, bye.
All right.
Interesting.
I know, right?
Yeah.
You can disagree, and the funny thing is a lot of people think and they get personally offended, right? They get personally offended that you're challenging their ideas when ideas should be challenged. You shouldn't respect an idea because it's somebody else's idea. You respect a person.
I agree with that. I agree that ideas should be challenged. Ideas are fair game. I agree with that.
Yeah.
That's how we create a better humanity.
Absolutely. If somebody says, Eric, I disagree with everything that you've said, that does not mean that I'm going to think that they hate me.
It was hard to focus on this guy because he was like the guerrilla warfare of making a point. Make a point and then retreat, and then make another point and then retreat. If you do that, you can't even address the first point after the 35th point. My mind went seriously numb trying to follow where he was going.
Yeah, I tried to put a tack in it a couple times, and you tried to put a tack in it a couple times, and instead it was flying off in different directions.
Very resistant.
Yeah, but hopefully he'll watch and
oh boy.
Yeah. All right. Let's actually talk to Sarah. Sarah, you're live with Eric and Hector. How are you doing? Oh, Sarah, before we jump into our conversation, I just want to say really quickly for the people watching, I will be thanking our top 5 patrons. I think, are going to have a long show because I've got some amazing callers and I want to talk to everybody. If you're up for it, Hector.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I will be thanking our patrons. If you want to become a patron, you can go. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I know I'm doing this to you and that's terrible. If you want to become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/talkheathen to me. Every penny that comes here goes to this 501c3 nonprofit, which is the Atheist Community of Austin. And we do a lot of really amazing stuff. And if you want to know what we do there, we're going to have a really amazing announcement on the Atheist Experience later today. So pretty excited about that. Also, I have a little bit more information about Godless Engineer. And the announcement is that Godless Engineer is going to be on Wednesday, January 30th at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. So military time, 1800 Central. Again, Godless Engineer will be on our Discord on Wednesday, January 30th at 6 p.m. Central Time. We really look forward to it. I'm a huge fan of Godless Engineer. Good catch, Ian. Sarah, thank you for your patience.
Sure. I just wanted to call in because I still believe in God, but I'm not, I don't have any religious affiliation, and I wanted to know maybe an opinion of someone who is not religious either on where they think the country is going in terms of if we're making progress getting away from religion or if the country is becoming more of a theocracy. I'm feeling just for the past few years with a lot of the presidents who have said that God told them to run and a lot of things we have seen after the past election, that it is turning into more of a theocracy, which is scaring me, but I don't know if other people are seeing something that I'm not, that we're actually getting away from it or if we're leaning more towards it.
So, Sarah, you called on a perfect day because there's an author that I greatly respect who's coming out with a new book in 2 weeks called Sex, Power, and Partisanship, How Evolutionary Science Makes Sense of Our Political Divide. I've got Hector Garcia as a guest. I think that he could probably do a better job of explaining that than I can.
Well, I have some thoughts on that, if I may. I think we are getting more polarized. So the partisan divide is getting wider, and conservatives are taking more hardline stances, and so are liberals in general. So I think among conservatives there does seem to be a hardening stance of conservative values, including religiosity. But then again, the nuns appear to be a growing demographic. But can I ask you something? You said you're religious, you believe in God, but the idea of a theocracy frightens you, that we may be moving towards that. Why does that frighten you? What about that frightens you?
Well, I'm not particularly religious. Right now I'm debating, I'm grappling with the idea that there might be a God. I don't know. That's kind of where my stance is, but I came from religious fundamentalism. I grew up independent Baptist, so I see, I've seen a lot of that in my life, and that was terrifying, and I see it in politics and in the government, so it's still very scary to me, but I wouldn't call myself necessarily religious.
Yeah, it is scary. It is scary. I think there are a lot of reasons to be scared by that. I mean, what religions have shown us over and over and over is that they really like squashing free speech and free thought and women's rights. Boy, that's something that we could talk about all day. So I think there's a big reason to fear a move towards theocracy. And there are people on the. I've seen the right. I've seen a movement in the right in this country that really I want to call it the American Taliban, because they're wanting a lot of the same things. Control of women's reproduction, squashing free speech, First Amendment rights. It's scary. So,
it is.
But there are specific reasons why it's scary.
Can I jump in just a little bit?
Please jump in.
Sure. So, Sarah, there is a lot of scary stuff going on. But good news. Are you ready for the good news?
Sure.
It's not getting worse. We're just learning more about it. There weren't less bigots during segregation. There were more. But the fact is, we live in a world where we're more interconnected, and we're finding out about it, and we're dealing with it. That we are less bigoted in 2019 than we were in 1999. That's 20 years. Right? The fact that more people are able to stand up and talk about it, right? The fact that we have amazing authors like Hector. I'm sorry, dude. I'm a fangirl.
Thanks,
oh, dude, yeah. Can I give him one more plug, Sarah? One more plug. if you like Seth Andrews, he's got this silky, velvety tone that I just want to tuck me in at night. I love that guy.
Yeah.
He narrates your first book.
Yeah, Alpha God. He does the narration for the audio.
Oh my gosh. I already read it, but I just kind of want to buy it just to listen to Seth Andrews for a little bit. But going back to it, sorry, I wanted to throw the plug while you're here.
I appreciate that.
Sarah, we are growing. We are making things better. And the fact is, yes, it's scary because we have work to do. But we're doing it. But we're helping each other, but we're able to have empathy when we can see somebody who pulls up a smartphone and goes, look at this. It is hard to turn your eyes away when you see abuse, right? It is hard to justify deep indoctrination at its core, right? And you might think, oh, well, what does that mean? It means that one of the things that's been on my mind recently is Proverbs 31. It just kind of stuck in my mind. I was very Christian, and Proverbs 31 goes over what a good Christian wife should be. You know, and there are all these different things, and some of them seem very empowering, but it ultimately breaks down to you're as good as you are useful to your husband. And
right.
I mean, that is...
Yeah.
It's painful, and you can go right now, look up Proverbs 31, because if you type it into Google, the first 5 pages are going to be how to be a Proverbs 31 wife. And the thing is on its face, when we look at it together, when you actually bring it out, sunlight is the best disinfectant. Over time, we're going to be able to point these things out. And the more we have these conversations, the more we're going to find that it doesn't stand up. A woman is not the compilation of useful things that she does for a man.
Yeah.
Right? A woman is infinitely more. You are everything that you want to be, and it's the good and it's the bad because we're just human. But to sit there and create a list, by the way, which is impossible to be perfect for, right? What you're doing is you're setting up a environment. Well, you know this. You know, you're setting up an environment where people are, you know, going always, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not, you know, and creating this nature of subservience. It's painful. Yeah. But when I was in church, I can tell you that it seemed like that was the entire world, right? If you're a Proverbs 1 through 30 man, you get a Proverbs 31 wife. And in 2019, look what we've got. Look what we've done. There are 1,035 people watching this right now.
Can I add to what you just said?
Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought up that proverb. And I think an important question to ask is, who stands to gain from a theocracy? Who stands to gain? Follow that. Follow powerful men stand to gain. Who stands to gain from a doctrine that says women should be subservient? Who stands to gain from a doctrine that says don't question the power structure, don't question the hierarchy, don't question the rules? There are moneyed interests in this country that a lot of them are probably not religious at all, but they have an interest in the religious voting populace just voting with the church because that can be steered to their advantage. So I would follow that. I think that's an important solution that shows like yours are helping people to question.
Love you too, man, and give people a place to land.
That's
Sarah.
Too.
It's not just about tearing that down; it's about building up something better. And the fact that you're asking those questions means you're giving yourself the opportunity to figure out how you want to make it better. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
I mean, I see what you're saying, and I feel like we have made a lot of progress. It's just like the stuff from like, there's even people who aren't like super religious that are making points from like apparent, like, I don't know if I really believe it, but from like a scientific standpoint about how things should be on the conservative side. And there's more of that too. And I don't know who stands to gain from it, but that's also becoming a popular trend. Like I've known people who were kind of in the middle before and they're extremely on the conservative side now. So I mean, even though I feel like we're making progress, I do I don't know how to feel about it.
Who stands to gain from that? So one thing about conservatism is they're way, way, way more comfortable with social hierarchy. They're way more comfortable, and this is measurable. This is measurable. So
I just want to throw a quick flag for YouTube because I want to hear this conversation, but as a 501c3 nonprofit, we are not allowed to endorse any candidates.
no candidates. No, I
so
got that.
as long as we can stay away from that, I'm happy to talk about issues because the ACA can make stances on issues. I just want to make sure we don't wander into that territory and lose our nonprofit status.
Word. Now, well, what I was going to say is, the psychology of conservatism is way more comfortable with social hierarchies, way more comfortable with one group having more and one group having less. That is who has an interest, and that's who stands to gain with conservatism. So, just think about that.
Okay.
That was my point.
Cheers.
Yeah.
All right, Sarah. Take care, and I hope that helped. Really, honestly, the best way to feel better about it is to do something.
Yeah.
Get active. If you don't know how to get active, you can call. If you want to email, you can shoot an email to mail@talkheathen.com, and we will help. There are tons of places that you can help, and I'd love to be able to point you in a good direction. If you cannot, if you don't have the time, that's okay. There are other things that you can do because you can help support other content creators, right? You can help support us. And if you agree with what we're doing, then you can do that. You can do it monetarily by becoming a patron, or you can do it by spreading the word. You can hit that like button. You can subscribe because I actually have way too much of my self-esteem wrapped up in that. So if you haven't subscribed, guys, girls, everybody, hit that subscribe button. That'd be really nice. You could leave a good review on Google Play or iTunes, and I guarantee you that there are people who go through atheist podcasts because they're atheists and just leave bad reviews the whole way along. Hit that thumbs up, and maybe we can actually grow in rankings so that people can find us. That's a great way that takes no time at all. That really helps. So.
Okay.
And keep asking difficult questions.
Yes. Yeah. All right. You take care.
All right. Thank you.
Let's keep going. All right. So let's move on to our next caller. And our next caller is Scott in San Jose. Scott, you're live with Eric and Hector.
And if only people had the courage to do that in person.
No, we're no worries. It's good. It's good. Let's keep going. Scott, what would you like to talk about?
Hello.
Hi.
Man, it's changed since I called. First of all, let me say that it's kind of freaky that what I wanted to call in was about the psychological aspect of belief.
Hey!
The first show I've seen that you guys have a psychologist on, and I'm kind of thinking I should just let him talk about the psychological aspect of belief instead of me saying anything whatsoever, because my guest is going to say a lot of the things that I would like to say.
Boy.
It's really, really, really weird.
Well, let's
narrow the focus.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Let's zoom in.
Yeah.
And I'd be glad to
narrow
geek
the
out.
focus.
Well,
for example, the one that you just listened to, right? The caller was just on who tried to get that thing in. And, well, what I was going to suggest to you, Eric, is...
What's up, buddy?
I've listened to the show a long time, and, I'm an older person. I'm 55 years old. I did some research in psychology when I was in graduate school. I'm ABD. And I listen and I hear you talking to people, and you keep trying to revert to rationality with people.
Mm-hmm.
And even on the calls today, I'm listening, and a couple of times Hector wanted to step in when the first caller I got from Brazil, I forget his name. Hector wanted to ask the person, how does that make you feel to think that there is no creator?
Oh, and I walked all
and
over
you cut him off.
Oh,
I'm so sorry, man.
And in a sense, it almost feels like you've wasted a great opportunity to personally learn from Hector about a different aspect of belief. And I think it's there, but it's not coming through. And like I said, I was going to suggest that you consider this stuff more when you have these conversations with people, because I do think that, my own personal research, and then, the next 26 years of just watching people talk and how they argue. And you can see that a lot of our beliefs are reverse engineered to justify an emotional position that we need to hold.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about that a little more, Hector? It's just like you analyze the way that. I'm sorry, I didn't catch the guy's name. The guy from Brazil, his name was.
I don't remember his name, but yeah, I can speak a little bit to that. First of all, I did try to ask him that, and he didn't respond. But yeah, fear is a primary motivator. I mean, people have written about this. Ernest Becker's American Anthropologist wrote about like one of the biggest quandaries emotionally of being human is that we have such an awareness of self largely because of the size of our cortex. We know that we exist more so than any other animal insofar as we can test that. We know we exist, yet we have the understanding that one day we're going to just dissolve back into the strata and be food for worms. That's a terrifying proposition for an entity that knows it exists to the extent that we do. It's terrifying. So what does religion do? It promises that that's not going to happen. And what does it do? It taps into this very old primate psychology to give us a salve for that fear. It says, yeah, there's actually, a powerful male in the sky who's going to protect us from death. He's going to protect us from our enemies. He's going to protect us from starvation. He's going to provide for us. So it serves to soothe our existential fears. That's one big thing. So that's major.
So I'm wondering if you have noticed this phenomenon of an indication of when that kicks in. For example, specifically when someone won't answer a question that's directly asked of them. I wonder if you notice how every time you ask a question that they can't deal with or their narrative won't support or it won't handle, they literally run away from the question.
Sure.
And, if you've seen that in your clinical research, in your clinical practice, how people who don't want to believe something really, really strongly refuse to even engage in the possibility of the question.
Sure, because the answer generates fear. So of course they're going to try to skirt it, either just not answer it or come up with a huge blockade of motivated reasoning to get around it and explanations or just I don't even know what went on with that just barrage of throwing another question just to evade. So I kind of dissociated a little bit. It was so mind-numbing.
Actually,
wow.
there's a.
But that is it. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I was going to say there's a Christian gentleman who's been coming into the ACA and talking with me, and he's an apologist, and he's very nice. We sit down and talk, and he and I are reading a book together. But one of the things that he said, and that person, Otangelo, I believe his name was, said was, Bayesian logic points toward God. And it's funny because it reminds me of my own way out. Because the way that I stopped, the way that I worked my way out is the better way to say it. The way that I worked my way out, I would ask a question and then a whole barrage of unrelated things were sent in and, it stopped me. Well, what if there's no God? Well, here's all of this, random stuff. And it's shocking, And I think part of it is, hey, I read this, I saw this, it sounds really good, I'm going to repeat it. But they don't take the time to think about it. And another is not understanding how logic works.
Can I just step in?
Please.
Why? But I think the important thing or the interesting thing to think about is why don't they think about it? There's a reason they don't think about it, and it is patterned, right? There's a set of things that people tend not to think about, and it does follow patterns. It's not random. And that's really important to understand.
Sure, things that generate fear, people are going to avoid. That's kind of a
exactly.
Yeah, and of course there are people. When you put the capacity to feel fear on the natural curve, you can map it onto the natural curve. Some people feel very little fear. Most of us are somewhat in the middle, and a lot of people feel a lot of fear. The conservative Christian evangelical types tend to be on the more fearful end. So that's the draw to these religions that have the salvation narrative to them, is it addresses those fears among that populace. So fear is right at the heart of all of it, for sure.
While I totally agree, I think back to myself as a believer, and I didn't think I was not asking questions because I was afraid. When I went through it, maybe my experience is just different, but when I went through it, I didn't know that something was broken or wrong, and so I didn't know to question in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lack of information, right?
Yeah, you've got to take your car, like your car starts clicking or something happens, and then you take it to the mechanic. And so if you have this toolbox full of tools that allow for that, then what you're using, what you're applying is the best that you have, and it's not getting you to reality. While I agree that fear is a piece, I didn't stay there.
But then again, you came out of it. So
maybe
you represent the less fearful end of the natural. Oh, sorry about that, Mark. Maybe you represent you're on the less fearful end of the natural curve. That's why you could
exactly.
Is that where you were thinking?
I don't know. I'm not that special, dude. That's like
special.
No.
I think this is. I've listened to you for a while, and I think this is one of the fundamental mistakes that you personally make.
Ooh, tell me.
And once again, I'm telling you, no. I know everybody says you shouldn't go after someone individually, but like I said, I approach this stuff from psychology, and all psychology is individual.
Oh, Scott,
right?
Dude, I want to be the best version of me that I can. Tear me down. I want it.
I get. No, I know. I get this, and I know. I agree you do, but I think you think that other people are more like you than they are.
Ooh,
and I think what separates a lot of atheists, we're just psychologically, we're born different.
No.
And I know that, I disagree with you. I just think you're wrong. Straight up, factually wrong. And I think if you research the issue more, I think you would understand more what I'm saying. It's not a philosophical position. This is an empirical position. And it's, has to do with what Hector is talking about on those scales of fear. Some of us are born more fearful. Some of us are born less fearful. Like when I think about my own transition from a believer to a non-believer, it literally happened on a car ride to my place of work, which is In-N-Out Burger, in 3 minutes. I made a realization that what if it's all made up? And it's like the bricks, the edifice fell down around me, and all of a sudden I wasn't a believer. I know other people do very different transitions, but when I go back and think about it, and like I said, I'm 54 years old now. I made this transition when I was 19, and the more I think about it, it comes to me that it was inevitable. I was going to be an atheist.
Well,
I was
listen.
I was not wired to believe.
Can I jump in and comment on before we get too far away from your topic? I think, people do differ in terms of how much they have like endogenous fear. I do think that's the case. I think we as a species, we have far more similarities than differences, but there are some differences on the natural curve. But I can tell you, as a psychologist who has spent his career specializing in PTSD, I can tell you people can overcome fear. It takes work. It takes discipline. It takes practice. It takes being extremely rational, fiercely rational, and to let the rational thinking, intel gathering part of the brain take the wheel. So
that's why I'm so glad you're on this show, because now I can ask you a question. So what allows a person to do that? What allows a person to step into that fear and to be rational? It's this chicken egg problem, right? It's where do you break into it as a psychologist, as a clinician? And is it possible to break into it with normal people?
Break into what with normal people?
This whole street epistemology phenomenon, right, is that kind of idea. If you can get people to engage in conversation, you might be able to get to them. But in my experience, people withdraw from the conversation once they start to get too close to these fear places, to these, to this essence of who they are and who they believe they are, and they're specialists in the world. They literally run away from the conversation.
Some people do, and some people do when they fear, and this is something we just had a conversation with David Oliverio on this, a lot of people do when they fear that they're going against the tribe because, look, we evolved in these close-knit groups of hunter-gatherer tribes that we needed each other to survive. Imagine if any of us were to be placed in the middle of the Serengeti, naked, with no tools, no weapons. How long would we survive without our tribe? Not long at all. This was the pressure that we faced. for most of our evolution. So we've ended up with an intense fear of being abandoned by the tribe. I think for a lot of people, that is what is involved in like rejecting these facts because it involves going against what the tribe thinks, and that's terrifying. So much of politics, so much of religion is based on that fear.
Okay. Let's say I agree with that 100%. Is that born or is that learned?
It's both. I mean, that's one thing I really do not like to falsely dichotomize, whether it's nature versus it's both. Yeah, it's learned, and we have a predilection for it genetically in the structure of our brain to feel afraid of alienating ourselves from the tribe. But it also is learned, and it's also enforced. I mean, especially when you have doctrines saying, don't leave the tribe. You can't leave that's a sin. Don't go, be united in body and mind 100%.
Can I ask you a question to kind of probe that a little bit?
Please.
So I've met a lot of atheists. And in meeting them, just because they came to a God conclusion does not mean that they're rational, and it doesn't mean that they're skeptics. It doesn't mean that they value reason or evidence or logic. There are lots of atheists who believe in ghosts and spirit healing, crystals and auras, and the idea that they can perform magic and do things that are supernatural. That there are still supernatural believers among atheists. And I don't think that coming to the conclusion that there is no God necessarily means that you have those tools. It just means that you came to the conclusion about one thing. So while I understand what you're saying, I feel like is it more? I'm monologuing. I'm not asking you the question here. The question is it more that they are in a place that they are not, needing the tribe? Because it feels like once the tribe falls away, or once you can exist outside of the tribe, it becomes easier to do that. If the tribe kicks you out, then you're there. But I see so many people who find themselves in these spiritual kind of woo communities, and they didn't lose their magical thinking. They just dropped the God part. I mean,
maybe that's so. There was a question in there.
Yes, the question is. And it's based on Scott, so maybe I should be asking Scott.
Scott.
You were saying that people...
It's okay.
Yeah, no, the question was, Scott was saying that people are born more likely to be religious, and that you can, were you saying that some people just can't be reasoned out of it?
Can I clarify that?
Please do.
I'm suggesting that we're all born on a spectrum, and so, we're each of us to different degrees feel fear, or more likely to have, born and not, innate and nurtured. And, the interesting thing, if one were on to be a scientist about it, is to just create a taxonomy of those things and some way to register those things. And because, I don't think we're all either born or I didn't say something. I hope I didn't come across as that simplistic, right?
Well, I was trying to kind of explore it a little bit. I'm glad that you're clarifying.
Yeah. Well, there are psychological traits that makes the transition to being religious easier, and I think the authoritarian mindset, really kind of looking up to authority, that's something that can vary on the natural curve, having difficulty with integrative complexity, like combining different ideas that some may be somewhat contradictory, as opposed to seeing things in black and white. So political conservatives tend to be on the far end of seeing things in black and white.
But what if we model the
comic book world order?
Can't we break through that if we're modeling?
Absolutely.
So Scott,
but that's the question, right? Can you? And I don't know if that's clear that you can break through with everybody.
Hector, can you?
Most people and that's the question of how many can you break through, how many can't you break through, and for example, the gentleman from Brazil. Mm-hmm. Do either of you think he could be broken through?
Scott, actually, I have a great answer to that. No, and I don't care.
Okay. Oh, really?
Really?
Okay. No, that's a real answer.
Yeah,
that's a really good answer.
Yeah. So here's the thing. There are a ton of people who watch this show. This show is for them. right? If I can have a good dialogue that people can see, because maybe they can't have those conversations, or maybe they want to see what it looks like when people have actually thought about it and worked on it and can have an intelligible conversation, where those things go, right? How logic plays out, how people can learn, to use logic, what epistemology is, right? The people that come in, especially the ones that annoy everybody, are the ones who are most like the elders of my church, right? They exist.
Yeah.
They exist. Yep. And there's this piece of me that shirks away when I think of standing up to somebody in that authority position. But the fact is, just because they are an elder in a church does not mean that what they're saying deserves reverence. And the people who are watching, right? If somebody's on the fence and somebody is on the fence because of poor reasoning, right? They talk to their pastor, they talk to a church elder, and that church elder says, oh, there is a God you have to understand because of irreducible complexity. That means that this show is important for people to understand why the argument from irreducible complexity is an important one to have. And being able to model that, right? I'm not just modeling, for the person I'm talking to. I'm hopefully modeling for the people who are watching to see an atheist engage. Because I want people to know that you don't need to put forward this angry stereotype all the time. Right? That we can be empathetic, that we can be kind, that we can be nurturing, and that we can be different. I mean, look at Hector and I. Do you know how many Latinos are at the ACA? We're growing it, but not a lot, man.
I think you're looking at them.
I mean, but we're trying. We're trying because it's important. But it's not about trying to convince that one person. I'm not going to hang up. I know people say, oh, hang up, they're never going to get it. You're missing the point. The point is that we're having the conversation.
Okay, but that wasn't my point.
Yeah, then I mean, skipped past it. I apologize.
I think it was more of a theoretical question, right? Can minds be changed? Well, I mean, let me throw this out there. Would that be easier to change his mind in Brazil, where the Catholic Church has a stranglehold over so much, versus Finland or something like that, where there's a tribe of people who think differently, ready to receive you. So yeah, I do think minds can change. I do think people can be taught to think in more complex ways. I think people can be taught to overcome their irrational fears. I think people can be taught to accept mortality for what it is.
But I think you'll agree that you're kind of using an abstract term there, people. You surely don't mean all people. And I'm guessing you mean people vary on a degree to which they can be taught, and they vary on the degree to which they can learn. Yeah, or am I mistaken?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, sure. I mean, some learn easier than others. That's what you're saying. Some learn easier than others. But you do have societies that are very non-religious, like all of Scandinavia, Holland, places like that religion is just kind of mostly irrelevant. Can you completely stomp out religion? Well, I made a case in my first book, probably not, but you can totally shrink its importance in our day-to-day life and the ways we govern. To an enormous degree, just look to Scandinavia. That's a good model.
Scott, question: the thing that you're putting forward is the conclusion that some people aren't worth talking to, or I'm just trying to. Oh, then please.
I guess that would depend on how you define worth talking to. If you think your goal in engaging in the conversation is to reach them, to truly communicate with them at some deep level, and I hate saying this, given my dissertation that I eventually failed was exactly the opposite. I was trying to prove that everybody could be reached through logic and reason, and the main reason we disagreed on anything is because we had differing degrees of information. And what I didn't account for, even though I was doing it in a psychology field, was that the emotional aspect of our beliefs drive almost everything.
They do, but you can also
I think reverse engineer. And then once again, I fell into the same trap I just accused Hector of. I said people, and no, it varies to degrees. Some people more than others, right? Reverse engineer our beliefs. And of course, once one says that, one has to look at one's own beliefs and say, am I reverse engineering all my beliefs? And if I am, then Does truth mean anything? Does it matter? Does science mean anything? Does it matter? Because if none of us can reach what anybody would agree is objective in terms of knowledge and understanding of the world, then we can't say anything at all. And
nope.
That's
actually
not a place I want to go.
Not true at all. Not true at all.
I disagree.
Well, and I'll explain why that's not true. It's not true because science. I mean, let's break it down on with science, okay. Right? Can you prove something true with science? The answer is no.
You and I are going to disagree on the definition of science.
The scientific method, hypothesis, testing, observation.
I got you. I took far too many philosophy of science courses in graduate school. Graduate.
Okay. Understood.
I'm fully versed on Popper and Lakatos, Kuhn.
Okay.
Feyerabend. You want to go into all of them? I can go on them.
I only want to go into them.
All of it is science is just people getting together to try to understand the world the best they can. There is no scientific method.
Scott,
the philosophy of science, and this is what Matt Dillahunty always gets wrong, is it's not a normative endeavor. It's a analytic endeavor. The philosophers of science are trying to look at what scientists do, or people who we call scientists, which is it's not arbitrary, but you can't define who is a scientist, who is not. They look and say, what are they doing that has in common and difference from other things that we do as human beings? And so does science? No, science doesn't do anything. People. and that's a distinction I think is really, really important because it's a psychological phenomenon when we abstract what certain people do out into this thing called science. Okay. And it removes responsibility from the claim, from the people who make the claim, the people who research the claim, and the people who try to support the claim to some abstract thing. And
so let's wrap it back down to the original point. No. Let's redirect down. No, that's okay because Scott, what I was going to interject was I'm happy to talk about these things so long as they are educational for the people who are watching. I don't want to fly over, So
I got you.
Yeah,
I got you.
The reason that I dove into this in the first place, Scott, is that we measure our knowledge of reality in degrees, not in binary yes or no. Right? If you were to give me sufficient evidence to support a claim, my degree of knowing that thing or accepting that thing is true goes up, right? And so,
yes, but
because of that,
not ignoring the fact that it's you, right?
I know I'm not ignoring that fact at all.
I can give someone else the same exact information; they could not satisfied.
Agreed, which is why we need to work together on having really good tools to be able to discuss things. Yeah. But that kind of is a sidetrack. And I know you're not doing it on purpose, but no, it's okay, man.
Sorry,
dude, you're good. You're good. Yeah. You're good.
Yeah. All right.
I'm just trying to zoom in here because the point that I'm trying to make is that I talk about it as capital T and lowercase t truth, right? Capital T truth is something we're always going to strive for, but never going to achieve. And if we do achieve it, we won't know that we've achieved it. And I think you would agree with me on that.
Yes.
Okay. And so if we are operating on degrees, right? Degrees of, you can be 99% on something, but if you're 100%, what you did is closed yourself off to ever finding out that you were wrong.
That's why we have. Right? That's why we have falsifiability in science.
Right. And so, if you're saying, because I heard you say, right, the reason I brought it to this place is because you said if we can't know, then there's no point at all. But to know, in my mind, says capital T truth, and if that's the case, none of us know. And
can I stop you for a second?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Did you just say that I said if we can't know, there's no point at all?
That's what I thought I heard you said. Was I wrong?
I said?
That's what I thought I heard you say.
No, sorry.
Okay.
No, not even close.
Then I drove us way off a cliff. I'm sorry. We are in the weeds. We are in the weeds, Scott. No reason to continue that. Okay.
But no. But I think I know where you're going. And the thing is yes, we can, if we engage in the conversation, reach common understanding of things. Mm-hmm. There are certain things I think are outside of the scope of our common understanding. It's like, the whole thing, what happened before the start of the universe, I think it's a stupid thing to even ponder it because I don't think it's within our mental capacity to even think about it, but let's not get sidetracked on that.
Nope.
But, does the Earth revolve around the sun? Am I 100% certain of that? Yes, I am. And I can say that without hesitation, without fear of being, the orbits around the sun.
What's the effective
Right?
the effective difference between 100% and 99.9%?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't care.
I don't either, which is why I don't say 100%.
Yeah. Well, there's no difference in what does it matter, right?
What matters ideologically for me is
really?
that
Talk to me.
It does. Ideologically, I would say that if I have 100% certainty about a thing, that I am making a claim that I know all of the things about that would get me there, and I don't know 100% about anything.
Yeah.
I mean,
certainly you do, man. Certainly.
No.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, I'm talking to you.
There you go. Are you 100% sure of that?
No.
Really?
Dude, I could wake up. I could wake up. You could be a dream. But I'm operating with the best. I'm operating with the best tools that I can, Scott.
I know there's this whole philosophical school and whole that has this thing, but if we're getting real, right? Sitting around just talking to each other. Am I talking to you? Yes.
But I think when you get that pragmatic, you get presumptive.
I don't know. I personally think it's folly. And once again, gets into the question of what is philosophy, right? And philosophy is just, men and women sitting around talking about things and trying to reach better understandings of things.
Yeah.
And if we want to start our conversation with like, I don't really know I'm talking to you. I mean, what are we really doing?
We are blowing smoke up each other's asses.
Doing philosophy.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
Scott.
But what's the point, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well,
No,
I am
okay.
more of a pragmatist. I do. That's why I'm not a huge fan of philosophy per se, because it just, what's the point? What is the practical
We're psychologists,
application?
though. We're trained in psychology.
Well, so
Daniel Dennett is one of the few philosophers this actually has a practical application. So what's the point?
Yeah.
How can we use what the question you're asking?
Scott, while I'm enjoying this conversation, I feel like we've kind of lost
We've gone long.
the thread. So it's okay, but I want to go out on a good point. Scott, I really appreciate you calling. This has been fun. And I would love to have this conversation. I know it doesn't always lend itself to live shows, but dude, that's my jams, man. I'm happy you called.
Yeah, me too.
Can I make one closing comment about the original thing I talked about?
Yeah.
It'll be really quick. And Eric, I want to suggest directly to you, when you start talking about moral philosophy and trying to come up with morality, start to think about how you respond to other people when they start to create a religion or try to justify religion. Because I'm pretty sure you'll come up with the fact that morality is just another religion. Parting shot. Something for you to think about. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah. Take care, buddy.
Look at your language when you talk about it, and it mirrors the exact language of an apologist.
Yes,
it always does with every moral philosopher.
But you are throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and I really like that baby.
Okay.
All right. Take care, buddy.
All right. Bye.
Darren, you stay on the line because I really want to talk to you. There was a line in your book, Alpha God, that stuck with me.
Oh, I like that.
And the line was that when people are trying to justify their religion and say, well, it's got to be true because it does all of these good things, what you're forcing them to do is drink the bathwater to keep the baby. Or was that about right?
Yeah. And say it tastes good. I forget. Yeah,
but that idea that, if you want to accept a good thing, you need to completely accept everything about it, even the bad, to be able to keep those good things. And I just thought that was very poignant. And the reason I'm thinking about it is because I would not want to assume that I'm having to drink the bathwater to keep the baby. And that if the baby is, right, us trying to identify those things that we consider moral and then, create laws and build societies around those moral, dictates and change them when necessary when we find out we're wrong. I would not want to call that a religion because it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like it has any of the trappings of religion as much as it does a fluid thing that changes and gets better as our society grows.
Our moral psychology is very pragmatic. I mean, and it has evolutionary roots. I mean, Robert Wright wrote a great book called The Moral Animal. You can, for anybody interested in understanding the evolutionary roots of morality that don't that aren't related to religion. So I'm not sure what he meant by that. But then again, philosophy.
Yeah, and there are people in the live chat who are saying I completely missed what he had to say. I'm going to go back and listen and watch it and see if I can learn more about it. I always go back and watch the show. But we have Darren. Darren is in Utah, and Darren has been waiting this entire time. Darren, thank you so much for waiting.
Thank you for letting me talk with you guys. I watched you for a little while and just enjoyed what I heard.
Oh, thank you. Hey, Darren, are we on speakerphone? It's a little echoey where you're at.
Like a robot.
It's actually in a room in a church.
All right.
So we're going to do our best. It's just a little hard to hear you.
Is it better now?
It was. I don't know what that sound was, but please don't do it again.
I think it was the echo of a room.
Oh, it's way better. All right, cool. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah. I was just talking to my friend earlier, and he brought up, what is it? God Force. And it goes along with the same lines of
Space Force.
You know, the computer, I can't think of the name of it, but basically, once you get looking at something so close, the less you know where it's been and stuff like that.
What?
Because by observing a particle, it basically changes based on your observing of that particle.
Quantum mechanics, yeah.
Yeah.
Quantum mechanics, that's what I'm thinking of. And he just said that no one can build anything that's any living creature, therefore particle physics somehow has a way of explaining that. It's a really confusing view.
I got nothing. It does remind me, somebody in the comments actually had a really, really fun point, and they were saying that if you're creating life from non-life, look at every atom in your body, because each atom individually is not alive.
It's true. It's the organization.
Yeah.
And we can create protein chains that are very similar to DNA in the research lab.
And also throwing out the half an eye thing, just because half an eye is way more useful than no eye.
Right.
If anybody wants to read Dawkins, The Blind Watchmaker, that's a really, really good book.
I loved his Dawkins. That was great. I love that.
Actually got to meet him. Was really excited about that. Did an event in Dallas.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and actually met him at SciCon. But that's getting off topic. Darren, why don't you have your friend call in? Because we have very different, the God Force. Like I'm a comic book nerd, so I'm thinking the Speed Force. Like let's tap into it and reverse time. And you were thinking,
I'm just thinking of this energy type thing.
Space Force.
Space Force. Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know,
man. I'm not a molecular physicist, but I can pretend that I know what I'm talking about.
I'm kind of curious about if we have actually been able to create a building block of life. I think we've created some sort of RNA once or something like that.
I have no idea.
I forget how close it approximated DNA, but I know we can create certain kinds of building blocks or some kinds of proteins in a lab. But my memory for those experiments is not. I don't know what it was exactly.
I'll have to find somebody on the show.
Just trying to simulate, the conditions of early Earth.
Oh,
chemical soup and electricity and stuff. So,
hey, Darren, we do have one more caller on the line I want to get to, but see if you can get your friend to call in, because I'd like that.
Well, I know a lot about the LDS faith. I was a LDS missionary once.
Wow.
So I know a bit about that, and a lot of it is really, like, you can't really dispute it much. I mean, I just know it doesn't sound quite right, but I just can't put my finger on where it's wrong.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
I think we'd need to go through it specifically with the person, because just like any other religious belief, they're so detailed and individualized to the person that you're talking to that to not talk to them and explore those things with them is to risk strawmanning the argument.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. It's getting real loud, bud. We're going to let you go, okay?
Okay.
Take care, bud. We have one more caller on the line. And let's see, is there anything else that I really wanted to announce? I saw a lot of love in the chat, wishing me well. After this, I am going to be taking some serious pain meds. I'm hurting so bad. But before we do, there was somebody who called in that I didn't think was going to call in. He's going by Evolution False today. He went by EF last week. He goes by a whole bunch of other things. Why don't you use your name? Hello?
Why? Because I prefer to use a screen name, and because there's a whole lot of atheist trolls and stalkers out there.
I totally understand that.
If we lived in a world where we didn't have a lot of miscreant stalkers and trolls out there, then maybe I would.
You know, let's work to build that better world. I like it. So, EF.
So my question...
Well, hold on. EF, you've called in a few times, and I do want to kind of bring people through this together before we kind of dive into things, right? The first thing I want to kind of dive into is the style of apologetic that you're using. I understand that that's called presuppositional. Would you agree?
You could call that, but my view is everybody argues from a presuppositional point of view.
Could you explain that so people who are watching can kind of follow along as we do this? Because I want this to be the most educational that we can make it. And so if we can work this out so people can watch, we can have a good conversation that people can grow from.
Everybody operates from a web of belief. Everybody has certain ultimate commitments. Mm-hmm. Everyone's going to have a belief in something that is ultimate, and their other beliefs will stem from that. You do, I do, everyone does. Okay. So my question to you is, since you lack belief in God, the personal absolute, you must be reasoning from an impersonal absolute as the basis.
I have a clarifying question.
And can I finish my question?
No, because I want to get through. Because you're calling on my show, so you can either wait. You can either wait because I'm trying to clarify this with you. No, you can wait. The reason you can wait is because I want to have an actual conversation and I want to understand what you're saying. So I want to ask for clarification whenever it comes up. Okay? Oh, were you put on hold?
I'm listening.
Okay, fantastic.
I'm listening.
Fantastic.
If you wanted to really cut me off, I'll wait.
Thank you. So you were starting to operate through, you said, because I disbelieve in a God, right? And then you started to attribute a quality to that God. And so I want to explore that, because if I don't understand what quality you're talking about, we're going to talk past each other, and that's not a good conversation. So can you give me that first quality?
That quality is that which is absolute and unconditionally non-dependent.
Okay.
Now,
can you explain that a bit?
Yeah, it means that something that exists that does not begin to exist, that provides for all dependencies or contingencies.
Okay.
Everybody has a belief.
Do you have any examples of that?
I'm trying to answer your question. You're going to cut me off rudely again?
Oh.
Is this the style of your broadcast where you cut people off?
I'm sorry. I thought this was Talk Heathen. I'm asking you to be specific. Okay? So,
I am being
do you have any examples of what you said?
I'm explaining to you a metaphysic about the nature of reality. Everybody believes that there's something that is absolute, that provides for all contingencies. Okay?
I don't.
Theists believe that. Non-theists believe that.
I don't.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. You don't have a belief that there's something unconditionally non-dependent?
So I asked you to clarify that, and you told me that I was rude and interrupted you. And then when I asked you to clarify it again, you moved past it. So If you're going to ask me, do I think a thing exists? I'm going to ask you what it means. Please.
Yeah,
what do you mean by unconditionally non-dependent?
An absolute, something is unconditionally non-dependent if its existence does not depend on its beginning or anything independent or external of itself. That's what we would define as an absolute.
Okay, so I'm having trouble conceptualizing that. Can you give me an example of a thing that I understand that is unconditionally non-dependent?
God. God would be an entity that we could offer as an example of something that is unconditionally non-dependent.
Okay.
Now, for non-God believers...
No. Hold on. I'm still exploring this with you.
Cut me off.
No, you're not attempting to support. You're attempting to move on to the next thing. So either you're going to listen and you're going to answer the question, or the conversation's over.
You can show your audience how rude you are.
Oh, okay. So he's on hold. You see, you're calling into my show. If you want your own show, create your own show. But if you want to talk to me and have a useful conversation where people aren't yelling at each other, you're going to have to do that. But there's not enough room for your ego on this. Let's try again. Are you there?
Yeah, let's try
okay.
Again. Now, can you not cut me off and rudely interrupt me before I finish?
No.
I don't care if this is your show. I will tell you where you're being rude, whether this is your show or you're on the sidewalk having a conversation with me. Now, I'd like to finish without you cutting me off.
Yeah, what do you think, Hector?
This is the third time I've appeared on your show, and each time you cut me off.
I think people tend to equivocate and then want to move on from there, so you don't know what they're talking about. I mean, I think I think it's a fair point. Give an example.
No. Go ahead.
What are you talking about? It's not really clear.
Well, I'll go through it again. Maybe this time you guys cannot interrupt me.
Maybe you can actually not get so sad.
I think sometimes interrupting is okay if it prevents us from spinning our wheels
doing it
and
to obstruct my ability to get the question out. It's very obvious what your tactic is.
The tactic is to break you down.
Yeah.
Because I honestly think...
There's no breaking me down. All you're doing is obstructing
you don't
my
like
ability.
questions.
Yeah. Well, no, he doesn't. He actually returns back and instead of answering a thing, just posits and then refuses to talk about himself.
Won't even let me get my question out.
Okay, so let me bring it back because you are very good at redirection. And I do not...
No, I'm sticking to my question.
No, you're sticking to a question that I didn't allow you to ask. So let's go back to the question I asked you at the beginning. Right? The question I asked you at the beginning
and I'm glad you're doing it because it's showing what you're doing.
Oh, man. Yeah, I agree. I don't let people who are dishonest to call and try and run other people's shows.
What did I say that was dishonest?
The tactic of redirecting and then, is it okay for you to interrupt? You know what? No, that's fine.
Well, let me get the question.
My show, I really don't need to actually drag down in with that.
Here?
So here's how it's dishonest. All right, put him on hold. I know it's Talk Heathen. It's my show, right?
Yeah.
My goodness. Okay, let's try this again, right? You said that God is unconditionally non-dependent. Right? That is a claim that you need to support. Now, for you to turn around and say, what is this about you? You have redirected away from the question I have asked you. And I am not going to allow this conversation to continue if you continue to redirect away from that. You're off hold. Go ahead.
Yeah, now who's dishonest now? There was no redirection. You wouldn't let me finish the question.
No, because I asked you a question and you answered with a question.
Okay, are you going to cut me off again? Here we go again. Who's being dishonest now, Eric? And I'm glad you're doing it.
So,
you know why I'm glad?
Continue.
Because you're exposing.
I love this, right? I press a button and he shuts up. So let's try this again. You say God is unconditionally undependent or non-dependent. How do you know this? Go ahead.
Okay, let's see if I can get my question out without you cutting me off again.
No, you're cut off again. right? I asked you a question. You need to answer it. Go ahead.
You asked me for an example of something that could be unconditionally non-dependent. I gave you an example in the world of metaphysics, theology, and philosophy of something that can be defined as unconditionally non-dependent. I then went on to give a counterexample, which I was unable to do because you cut me off.
Yeah, because I said, how do you know?
Something that, and you're cutting me off again.
Yeah, because I don't know why you like hearing the sound of your own voice so much that you're not willing to have a conversation with somebody.
Yeah, so
right? Put the script down and listen.
Who's dishonest? Let me finish.
How do you know that God is
I didn't.
Go back and listen, man. Is there any use to this?
I gave you a definition.
How pointless is this?
This is your little game you want to play, and you have the nerve.
I have the nerve to have a show. My goodness.
I mean,
this person's a joke. So, EF, is there any reason to have a conversation with you, or are you just going to get upset because I asked you?
I'm attempting to have a conversation with you.
No, you're attempting to talk at me.
Rudely.
And,
no, sir, every time I begin to respond to you, you cut me off.
Okay, then let's hear your answer to
then don't
how do you know that a God meets those parameters?
I said that God is defined. By definition, a God or not God can be defined as being unconditionally non-dependent. When we talk about entities, they can either be unconditionally non-dependent or they can be dependent. Now, before you rudely cut me off, I tried to give a counterexample of something that is not God. Now, for certain materialists, they believe that the substrate of matter is unconditionally non-dependent, from which the singularity and the Big Bang arose. So I gave you an example from theism and an example from an atheistic worldview.
No, you gave an example.
I'd like to get my question out that you have refused to let me ask.
No, because we're still talking about this one. We finish what we start.
So the answer is no, you're not going to let me ask my question? Is that it?
When we finish this, we move on to the next.
Let me ask my question. Are you going to let me ask my question?
When we're done, yes.
So you're afraid of hearing my question, is that it?
No, I just don't need you to run roughshod and avoid things. Okay, then listen.
I'm not avoiding things.
Then listen, because right now it really sounds like you are. So let's go back. Okay.
I'm stalling
your answer. This is my freaking show. Right? I could have gone on without you on hold again, right? I could have gone on and ended the show without talking to you at all. It is a privilege when you call in, not a right. You don't have the right unless you are having a productive conversation, because that's what we do here. So let's go back. EF.
Okay, I'll try to get my question out again. Are you going to cut me off again?
When you finish this conversation, then you can ask your question.
I want to ask a question. Are you going to let me get my question out? Or
once
are you
we
afraid
finish.
of my question?
Once we finish.
Ask a question.
So you can ask your question. I'll hold again. Here's the thing. You said a God can be defined that is unconditionally undependent or non-dependent. Cool. I can define myself as a deity too. But the thing is we're not getting any closer to finding out what is true. So when I asked you if you can give me an example of a thing, I think I made a mistake here, because the mistake that I made was I didn't ask you what existent thing that we can agree on has those qualities. And how do you even know that it's necessary? If you can answer that, we'll move on to your question.
Is he talking in an abstract, hypothetical kind of way, in the sense like, okay, some say gods are this, and some say, matter is this?
I don't know. As soon as I asked a clarifying, he said I was rude, and I cut in, and then he said I need to ask a question, which to me smacks of completely dodging.
Yeah.
Right. Which is why I want to finish this, because I want to actually see the conclusion before we change the subject.
Okay.
Right? As a presup, you are doing a very poor job, because what you're doing is you are, instead of actually demonstrating the thing that you're talking about, which I'd be happy to have, right now you're relying on dodging, and that's not okay. So, again, let's bring you back. Hey, EF.
Yeah, who's being dishonest here? There's no dodging. You're the one who's dodging. You will not let me get my question out. Every
I'm
time
rubber,
I attempt to ask the
and
question,
you are glue.
cut me off. Now, are you going to let me get my question out unfettered and uncut off?
This is my last time I'm going to say this.
I don't care.
Cool. Then you're done. You don't care, you're not worth my time, you're not worth the time of the people who are watching this show. If you want to call and have an honest discussion, you are absolutely welcome to. We want to have those discussions. But if you've called because you want to read a script, if you've called because you think that it makes you sound really good by completely dodging, you have a burden of evidence, right? You're making a claim, I'm not. And so when you make a claim, if you're going to say, I just know because I know, and then completely dodge around the fact that that is the presupposition, then there's really no point in having a conversation with you at all, is there? You can just have that conversation yourself. You can have it with the teddy bear. I don't care, because there's no point in me coming back and actually exploring it with you, because you have no intent to. And I've seen this. I've seen it with this precept. I've seen it with other precepts. And the idea is, I have special knowledge, and I am going to duck, dodge, dive, dip, and dodge. He dodged twice, instead of actually responding. So, no, man, you don't get room on my show. With that said, I know we're late, but Hector, this has been a blast.
Man, yeah.
I hope that you had fun. I know that I kind of took that over, but I've been waiting to shut that mofo down for a while.
Have you had more than one conversation with him?
Mm-hmm. And you know, at first, it's funny because, you know, it's saying, oh, you're not being a very good participant. And that threw me, because I want to be a good participant. I want to be able to have a discussion, and it made me wonder whether or not I was actually doing that. But going in and actually understanding that it's okay to say, hey, I don't understand this thing, let's hit the brakes and explore it, gets you to a more fulfilling, more educational understanding of whatever it is that you're discussing.
Yeah.
But if you just dive out of the way, right? He was more concerned about his ego, you know. It's very rude of you. You're a very rude person. Yeah. You know, the funny thing is, you can be rude and still be right, which is why I let him call in the first place. But if you're going to continue to dodge, then what you're doing is you're making actual conversation impossible. And that's when I hit the brakes.
Yeah. I like to operationally define as much as I can. I think it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. But, man, that felt good. I hope he calls back in, because that was a lot of fun.
I'm curious now to know what the prior conversations were like.
Oh, go back. You will lay an egg. So you said you've seen Talk Heathen, right? Yeah. Oh, wait. I had a bunch of people in the live chat, and I completely didn't start answering, and now they're gone. I still have Stephen Brewer, who said, just for having to deal with this guy again, donated $100. I can't believe it. We've had other people who are donating, and they're amazing. We had people who emailed in after that last caller called in last week. I really didn't think he was going to do it. I'm pretty impressed. I can't thank you enough. So let's start. Do you remember what we threw up the love rings? Let's try it. Ready? Yeah. Oh, wow. I know, right? Okay.
It's power.
But what we're going to do is we're going to thank those people who are actually making it so that we can get there. And first, we want to thank the patrons for all of you supporting us. We wouldn't do this without you. And it gives me purpose. It gives me a reason to come in after having a pretty bad car accident. There's nothing that was going to stop me from being here, because being here and having this conversation and being able to interact with you fills me up. But there are other people who make that happen, and that's the people in the back. Really, again, let's take a look. And we've got Mark and Vern right there. Silas, you in there too, bud? No, not right now. That's okay. Oh, no. Okay. I want to thank the live studio audience. Let's get those love rings back. Do you remember what we say when we close out?
No, I don't remember that.
Okay, so we start by saying, if you don't believe, you have a community here and that you belong, right? Or something to that effect.
Yeah.
But then at the end, we say, if you do believe, we don't hate you. We just think you're wrong. And that's the end of the show.
I like that.
Right?
I like that.
So at the beginning, right, we kind of bring it in and we say, if you don't believe, you have community.
You have a community here.
You belong.
You belong.
And if you do believe, ready together? We don't hate you.
We just think you're wrong.
We just think you're wrong. See you next week.
Okay.
You did great, brother. Dude, I'm so glad that you came. This was really awesome. Check out Sex, Power, and Partisanship.